We all do, and this is the point. This is what I'm trying to raise to you before we even get into all of this shit. Like, this is easy. Until you understand all of this, and understand that most of your behaviours are naturally, and mine included, coming from a place where you want to be liked and loved. You want to be liked by everybody rather than respected. That doc didn't give a shit whether that player liked them or not. It's like, I don't care. Like, I'll be here tomorrow. I'll pick up my wages and I'm doing my job. I don't need this person to like me. Flight was good. It's nice to be here in Pittsburgh. Never been before. Nice to take some time just to reflect on the session yesterday, which I thought was great. Got off to a great start with the tour, and specifically, I think one of the pivotal points in the day yesterday was when we got to speaking about the whole topic of confidence and certainty, and how for many people it's something that they never really get the chance to ever live with. They spend their whole life looking for it, and they spend their whole life waiting for it to happen to them, and it's really a decision that you make. And for example, a situation with a patient might be that they're asking you questions that you're not 100% sure on their answer. For example, it could be that they're asking you exactly how long it's going to take for them to get fixed. And it's just as important to understand that how you say it is more important than what you say. So for example, a patient might be pushing you to know exactly how long this thing's going to take. For example, if it's a hamstring injury or a back pain problem, sciatic problem, it might be that you don't know if it's going to take 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and instead of bluffing your way through it, I'm not a big fan of fake it till you make it. I'm a big fan of hit them with the certainty that they want from you, because that's really the thing that they're looking for from an expert or somebody who's an absolute master of what they're doing. Doesn't necessarily always have the answers, but they have the courage and the certainty to actually reveal it to the patient when they don't. And if I'm looking at a patient with a back problem and I don't know that it's going to take 4 weeks, the best thing that I can do is tell the patient that it's going to take 4 weeks. And I'm much better off looking that patient dead in the eye, literally almost looking through the camera and saying, I don't know exactly how long this is going to take, but I'll tell you as soon as I do. Or I don't know exactly how many sessions, but I know we're going to fix this. And it's not necessarily what I'm saying, it's how I'm saying it that the patient is being picked up on it. And a story that I never ever forget, which I think was one of the most pivotal points of my career, was in understanding that from a doctor, understanding this whole concept from a doctor that I trusted and a doctor that I used to take my professional soccer players to. Players would be very keen to know exactly how long their problem was going to last, because they were on big bonuses. They had a lot of money at stake. Together. Natalie, this one's for Harry. Show Harry and Tobias the dinosaurs. There you go. So we're off to Hermitage, Pennsylvania. We'll be there in about 50 minutes. Excited to get there. Come and say hello tonight. Big turnout yesterday, which was great. We're expecting a bigger turnout in Pennsylvania tonight. They reckon this could be the size of a Donald Trump stadium rally. It's going to be that big in Pennsylvania tonight. I'm very confident you're going to show up. See you soon. And so bearing in mind I was in professional soccer, so this is guys like multi-million-dollar soccer players, right, earning big money. And if they played on a Saturday, you're talking 5-10 grand appearance fees, right? There's serious money on the line. So they'd get injured, they'd have a hernia or an ACL or whatever it would be, or a meniscal tear, right? So I'd take the players to see the doc. And the players, the first question is like, when am I back on the field, doc? Like, when will I be back on the field? Because they're running numbers in their head. They've got their cars mortgage, they've got the mortgage and their cars financed, 6 cars on the drive, kids in private school and all sorts of shit. Bills coming out of their ass. No matter how much money they earned, never had any. Like, so they needed to be back on the field. So every time we'd go in, it was always the first question: when will I be back on the field? And he'd many times just go, I have absolutely no idea, John. And the players would be like, what? like, you're not supposed to say that. Like, you're supposed to give me some bullshit, like, 6 to 8 weeks. And he'd just go, I have no idea. But when I do, I'll let you know. And I was just like, oh, that is just so good, right? And I'm like 23, 24 at this point. And I pulled him on it after, and I said, like, how do you get away with that? Like, how do you do that? Like, nobody's supposed to do that. Like, I've been like allowed to believe that what you say to a patient is something that they want to hear. He said, no, I tell them what. And his response would often be, I don't know, but I'll tell you as soon as I do. And that was a pivotal point. And I remember pulling him aside after and saying, how did you get away with that? Because these guys want to know to the day. He said, if I don't know, the best thing I can do is tell them that I don't know. And that gives them the confidence in him that they're being honest, he's been decent, he's been honest, he's been trustworthy. And it actually buys him some trust, so that the next time he has something to tell them or something to say, or he needs them to do something, he gets their buy-in very, very quickly, because he bought their trust from the get-go. He didn't fake it, he didn't flake it, he didn't try to pander to them. He looked them straight in the eye and flat out would say, I don't know, but as soon as I do, you'll be the first to know. And it never lost me that as to how important that was. And he said sometimes he would do it even if he did know, and he would do it just to get the authority and just to get the control in the relationship between him and the patient, so that he would be in charge of the whole treatment process from then on in. And anything that he said from that point on was well received, because the patient knew that if he didn't know, he would tell them. So every single question that was being asked from that point on, so let's say if it's an ACL recovery that could take 6 months, at every single point that patient had questions, they would accept whatever he said, because they knew from the get-go that if he didn't know, he'd have told them at this point. And I think and I pulled him on it after, and I said, like, how do you get away with that? Like, how do you do that? Like, nobody's supposed to do that. Like, I've been like allowed to believe that what you say to a patient is something that they want to hear. He said, no, I tell them what, like, they need to hear from the get-go. It's the only way I can get their trust. And the fact that I tell them I don't know, from that, and he said, half the time I do know, and I know exactly it'll be like Wednesday the 17th, you'll be back on the field. He said, but much of what I do to get their respect in me is confidently tell them I don't know, but the minute I do know, I'll let you know. Where do you want this to go? And it's kind of that, it's that type of authority, it's that type of confidence that if you look at, I think personally, the PT profession, we don't have. So that needed to have stopped. It needs to go back to the the certainty and the confidence to go, sit down. What do you want? Do you want to be out of here as fast as possible, or do you want the right outcome? Rather than, yeah, I'll get you out. The girl who does that, right, and I've seen it in my office, and it'll still go on to this day. And everybody needs to be reminded that they're doing it. Ultimately, we're all doing it for approval.
Yeah. No, she desperately wants to be liked.
We all do, and this is the point. This is what I'm trying to raise to you before we even get into all of this shit. Like, this is easy. Until you understand all of this, and understand that most of your behaviours are naturally, and mine included, coming from a place where you want to be liked and loved. You want to be liked by everybody rather than respected. That doc didn't give a shit whether that player liked them or not. It's like, I don't care. Like, I'll be here tomorrow. I'll pick up my wages and I'm doing my job. I don't need this person to like me. What I want you to do is respect me. And that's a big, 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 big difference. And when I kind of continued the conversation with him, I realized it wasn't what he was saying that the patient was after, it was how he was saying it. So if he'd have said to that footballer that day, so I'm the footballer and I've torn my ACL, I'm like, Doc, when will I be back, right? Look, I've got kids, I've got a mortgage, I've got 3 cars on finance, I've got a huge loan to pay, I need to know when I'm back. If he'd have said, I'm not quite sure, but I'll let you know. At that point, it's game over, lost, right, completely gone. Because he looked him dead in the eye and said, do you know what, I have absolutely no clue, but I'll let you know as soon as I do. he didn't know, the patient, the player didn't know how to deal with that, and he was like, oh. And the more I read up on it years later and I understood it, he didn't actually hear what was said. This is the science. He didn't hear what was said, he just saw and heard how it was. And he saw somebody who looked him dead in the eye and said, I don't know, but when I do, I will tell you. In a way that he could believe in and trust. From that moment on, in 0.2 seconds, the trust of that doc is earned. Done. And every point now, when the player then would say, oh, is this going to work? The doc would say, yeah, absolutely. The player would go, well, all right, I believe this, because when I asked him a question last time, he didn't know, he told me. But he told me to the point of, it was the how and the way in which it was said that made me as a patient, made me as the player, if you like, want to believe in you more. And I put it to you all, if again. And I think that's just something that should never, should ever be forgotten. If you're a business owner, you're dealing with people, you're dealing with your staff, you're trying to give them more confidence, you're trying to give them more authority. One of the things that helps them to do that almost in a heartbeat is just to remind them that they don't have all the answers and they don't need to have all the answers. But what they need is the confidence to say they don't, and have the absolute courage, the certainty to look a patient in the eye and say, you know what, I don't know exactly how many sessions this is going to be, but I think what you're asking is, do I know how to fix it? And the answer is yes, I do know how to fix it. And the minute that I know exactly how many sessions this is going to take, or exactly how long this is going to take, I'm going to let you know. I don't claim to know everything, but what you will get from me is the honesty, the decency, and the certainty that I think you're craving, and that most patients are craving that type of thing more than people trying to bullshit them and even be nice to them, and it's the reverse effect. I'd rather you tell me that you don't know but very confidently, and that we'll figure it out, rather than be nice to me and pander to me and try to bullshit your way through it, which I sadly believe that many healthcare professionals do. Not on purpose, by the way, they don't even know they're doing it. For most, they don't even know that another option exists other than to pander to patients and be nice to patients. And really what this whole kind of book tour is about that we're on right now, and the whole concept of To Sell Is Healthy, the book, it's about confidence, and it's about being authoritative, and it's about getting the courage to say what needs to be said and stopping this disease that people are living with, particularly in business, of trying to be nice to people and instead focus on being liked and doing what is needed rather than what you think that the patient wants, just because you're worried about what patients might think of you. So for me, it's always about how you say it, not what you say, and your body language, your eye contact, your tonality, all of those things are important in that process. And ultimately, when patients are asking you questions, the answer is almost irrelevant, and you can be guided by what they really want is certainty in the answer. And if you appear to be more certain with the answer that you're giving them, even if it's the answer that they don't want, for example, in the case of the footballer, that footballer needed to know that he'd be back playing within 30 days. To wrestle control away from the patient and get back to the doctor being in control, he confidently told him that he didn't know exactly when he'd be back. But it wasn't the number of days that the patient wanted to know. The patient was really setting a trap for, how confident are you, how certain are you, will you pander to me, will you lie to me, will you kiss my ass like every other doctor has, or will you stand up and take control of this entire process from here on in? Because if you do, that's the doctor that I want to do business with. And I think it's a great message for all physios, front desk people, anybody who's dealing face to face with a patient. Never, ever, ever forget that the thing that they want over and above anything that they're asking you for is certainty, and you're 100% in control of that with your understanding of the question, understanding of what they want, your eye contact, your body language, and just ultimately how you make people feel, and focusing in on making patients feel very certain, even if it's at the expense of a few awkward conversations or a few uncomfortable silences or moments that people seem to want to shirk from. That I believe personally it's just killing people's chances of being successful in life unless you face up to these things. You'll always have an uncomfortable conversation, you'll always feel awkward, you'll always feel as though patients are putting you under pressure, you'll always lose front desk people who are never quite good enough, and it's quite simply because the person you've employed doesn't understand all of these concepts and hasn't been given permission by you to be the best version of themselves, which I think is the business owner's job, to ensure that that person is able to be the best version of themselves, lives without any fear or pushback, and is able to lead the conversation with patients so that ultimately they get what they want, which is certainty. Any questions so far? Making sense? Teach you any of this in school? There's the problem. You don't get taught this.